I would like to call to order the Village of Ashwaubenon Park and Rec Board for Tuesday, July 15, 2025. Roll call, please.
Chris Serbo,
Here.
Tracy Flukie,
Here.
Ron Mowerman,
Here.
Nancy Mackey,
Here.
Dean Hess,
Here.
All right.
and Mark Castonia.
Here. All right, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please keep in mind our brave men and women are keeping us safe here and abroad. Action on the agenda.
Move to approve. I'm sorry, move to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Action on the minutes from May 20th, 2025, Park Board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Comments from the public. Must be limited to items not on the agenda. Must state name and address, limited to 5 minutes. Board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed nor individuals named. Board is not able to take action at this meeting. Comments from the public, nobody here, nobody on the interweb. Comments from the public being none, we'll move on. Acceptance of written reports. I've got something, and anybody else can jump in. Rex, can you give us an update on what's going on the Argonne Park boardwalk?
There we go. Sorry. The Argonne Park Boardwalk, we finished installation on that probably about a week ago. So that goes down east-west direction at the northern end of the park, coming off of Argonne Street, loops around through the woods, which we have taken out a lot of the buckthorn and a lot of the dead ash trees. It's a boardwalk very similar, if not exactly the same, as to the kind that is in Sherwood Forest that was recently installed just a few years ago. Once it gets out of the wetland area on our side, on our property, it then turns into a crusher dust trail which goes along the back side of the park. I've been getting a lot of questions on it, like how long is it, from people that haven't seen it. It's not that long. It's not that long of a boardwalk. It's not that kind of a trail. It's more for the neighborhood and for the people walking their dogs, just getting out to get some fresh air or exercise when they get home from work. I wouldn't call it a destination trail per se, but it's more of a neighborhood trail that people can use who live in that particular neighborhood. So it's got a couple of seating benches in there. It's a little open right now because of the amount of buckthorn and amount of the dead ash that we've taken out of there. However, our long-range plans over the next year or two are to kind of reforest that area, plant more shrubs and more trees to kind of bring back that woodsy feel as you're walking on the boardwalk area itself. So still more to come on that particular project, but the boardwalk is in. The Park and Rec crew built the approaches on each end to get up onto the boardwalk area. So that is done and it's currently in use. So feel free to go over and check it out.
So are the ramps to get on the boardwalk wood also?
No, Tracy, we used clay for the ramps and then made them a crusher dust approach. We put crusher dust on top of it. Very similar to, somewhat similar to Sherwood.
Sure, okay.
Once the grass grows, because we kind of sloped it off to the side, and we have a large like Door County flat stonework on each side to keep it from moving per se, during rainstorms and stuff like that. Once that grass starts to grow, because it's covered in straw right now, and hopefully by the end of the fall we'll remove that straw. You probably won't even be able to tell it's officially an approach. It'll almost look natural going right up onto the boardwalk.
Yeah, it does look, I had one person that lives in a neighborhood make a comment that you said natural, and that was probably a good way to put it. That didn't look, it looked a little out of place, but explaining that we're gonna replant everything and reforest it, yeah, it's gonna make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it looks nice to it.
It's barren right now just because of, that forest was nothing but ash. There's a few cottonwoods in there, but minus about a half dozen cottonwoods, the whole thing was buckthorn and dead ash trees. So it's fairly barren, but we hope to work on that over the next year or two.
And there's no way of getting rid of the cottonwoods, huh?
The way things are going, Chris, my worry is that they will be the last tree standing along with the silver maple. So
Right.
I'm kind of reticent right now to take any
It's a
even of the
tree.
nuisance trees down.
Right.
You know, keep my fingers crossed that nothing ever happens to our maple population.
Right. All right. Any other questions on the Park and Rec report for Rex? I know he doesn't get a lot of opportunities to talk about it. What the new
I will say one thing, I'm gonna jump in.
Yeah,
Hopefully people don't mind on this, but this, we have our summer concert tomorrow, Paul Evenson, which is always a good show. Concessions provided by the Moose Lodge, so that's at Klipstein Park. Thursday night, we have our food truck rally. And so that's from 4:30 until 4:30 till 8:30, so that should be great. We've got 8 food trucks. The weather is going to be good for Thursday night. It doesn't look like there's any rain really in the forecast, so we're keeping our fingers crossed for that. On another note, I get a lot of calls on this too, or questions. The band shell is progressing from the initial estimates that we've been having with our design group and our donors. The costs have come in at fairly close to the dollar amount that they were hoping to donate. So we will be moving forward with that. Basically, we're just looking at, do we want a shingle roof? Do we want a metal roof? That type of thing. So it's going to be built, the good thing. So we're hoping to start, we're hoping to start, if we get all the DNR permits in line, sometime in August on the construction of that. So that's the stage/band shell at Klipstein Park.
Rex, have you got many applications for the park maintenance position? Or have you advertised it yet?
We have advertised it. We had about 50 applications, give or take a few. We already did round 1 of interviews. We did 7 initial interviews. We've picked a couple people out of that group, and those calls will soon be made. And hopefully we'll get someone and get them on board.
okay. Anything else for the reports? No, not, we'll move on.
I think we need a motion for those, so please receive.
Oh, that's right, yeah. We need a motion to receive the,
Second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to accept the written reports. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. 8A, this one comes up again. Consider, discuss, act on the co-sponsored status report for the 2026 Ashwaubenon Swim Club request. Rex?
So we can probably almost get 2 things done here at the same time. All right. So regarding the co-sponsor groups, just as a follow-up, there were 3 of them that initially thought that they may want to leave the co-sponsorship per se and go off on their own. July 1st was the deadline. Ashwaubenon Swim Club is the only one that is currently and now wants to pursue or will be going offline. So we will still have 6 co-sponsored organizations. Swim Club is the only one leaving us, which they were the ones that initiated this to begin with. And so, but we said, well, if we're going to do Swim Club, we need to open it up to all the groups. Tracy, you were going to say something.
Yeah, my question on that is, my take on this was we were not saying they are no longer co-sponsored. We were just saying that you had an option as a co-sponsored organization to say, I no longer want the funding, And when you don't, then you want to add non-residents, because we're still co-sponsoring, we're giving them a ton of stuff, and they're still one, I would consider one of our co-sponsors, so I didn't like that verbiage in there, and that was my interpretation of it, and I don't know, maybe I didn't understand that properly, but that's what I was
And you
thinking.
know what, when the village board, and that's probably on me, because when the village board discussed that, I was not at that village board meeting. So in terms of where I know that they're not taking the funding anymore, so however that leaves us, they're not taking the funding anymore. Baseball and wrestling were considering it, and they decided to stay where they were, to continue with the funding and not worry about the other stuff. So it's just the swim club that is pulling back from receiving direct funding from the village. However, they're still receiving in-kind services from the village, i.e. us doing the payroll, us not charging them for use of the pool.
Right.
Are the biggest things right now, for
Right.
use of the facility.
And I would consider them still a co-sponsored myself. What do you, I mean, maybe I misinterpret that. What do you guys think on that?
Rex, when I read the thing, and I looked at the board minutes from March 25th, our minutes, and the village board did not dissolve the co-sponsorship of the Ashwaubenon Swim Club. All we did was make a modification to the co-sponsored policy, which in fact said that we would, if they wanted to have non-resident, non-open enrollment people involved in their organization, then they would simply forfeit their financial taxpayer-funded reimbursement.
Which then brings us to the question on the agenda here, is they're looking for those non-residents across the board as an organization for all of our co-sponsored. It's a 15, this is a dollar amount set by the village board, or the park board, I should say. So it's an extra $15 per non-resident, whether they're open enrolled, and now whether they're not open enrolled. If they're a non-resident, they pay that before they were paying that 15, and that 15 just went directly to the organization. We didn't take that. There was an extra benefit to the organization, to help supplement their revenue for supplies and equipment, payroll, that type of a thing. Swim Club is now asking whether or not they can increase that for non-residents. And they're looking at anywhere between a $30 to a $50 fee, where all the other organizations are gonna be at 15. So this is the quandary. I mean, it's not my decision, because that $15 fee was handed down to our department from the park board. This is what we want to have extra paid for those non-residents. Swim Club is now saying, hey, can we charge more? Now, do we want to charge more? What is the purpose? And is it?
I would like to still get back to the concept of co-sponsorship, just to make sure that there's clarity on that. It is the village board's prerogative. If they want, they can dissolve a co-sponsorship. Or the club that is co-sponsored could ask to be relieved of it. I do not believe that either one of those cases occurred, according to what was approved by the park board and the village board. So that being said, the swim club is still considered a co-sponsored organization, simply because it still is held responsible for the village part of it, in-kind services, and the swim club also has their responsibilities to all the other parts of the current policy.
So keep it at, so what, do you have then an opinion on that 15 specifically? Do you want to keep it the way it is?
No, I'm just getting back to this idea of co-sponsorship.
And I agree. I think what Dean's trying to clarify or make sure we all understand is the way we addressed it, if they want to have non-residents, they could do that. And they are still co-sponsored. And then we said at that time, $15 more that they could charge for the non-resident. Now, they're coming back and saying, okay, we're gonna give up our money, which we agreed upon. But we wanna now charge more for our non-residents. And our policy, what we had said and what village board approved was $15 for non-residents. So I think it should be 15 myself. that they can charge more, and maybe if they wanna look at it next year or something, the board and the park board can consider that. And they, in my opinion, are still considered a co-sponsored organization of the Village of Ashwaubenon.
Okay, and I don't disagree with you, but help me understand where this is tying in with the $15. You just want a clarification whether they're still a co-sponsored
They
or
are.
not, and then that follows into the,
When I read the agenda, there was some concern about whether the village had any responsibility in deciding what we could do with the swim club, okay? And I think we still do because they're still co-sponsored, because we still are providing something to them, which makes us a co-sponsored entity, which was in-kind services. So that I don't believe has ever been dissolved. The board has never approved the dissolution of the swim club as a co-sponsored organization, nor has the swim club ever asked to be. So the only difference that was made was to the whole co-sponsored policy was if you want to have non-resident or non-open enrollment, then you simply lose that portion of the current policy as far as taxpayer-funded for reimbursements, which I believe is the first
Understood.
part of the policy.
Not arguing with that, or not arguing with that, Dean. The question, though, is they are now asking to have a higher non-resident fee. And do we want to allow a single organization to do that? Do we want to raise the non-resident fee across the board? Or do we want to keep it at 15 for all co-sponsored organizations?
Well, what was approved at the village board meeting was $15. However, if they want to increase that, I sure hope that they would realize, if we were to approve that they could actually wind up getting less enrollees by having that cost continually go up. They might consider other avenues in terms of novel ways of refunding. I think what they're trying to do is to get that, was it 2338?
Yep.
That they lost, to get that back by raising fees for the 16 cap enrollment that they have for non-resident, non-open enrollment. And if they wanted to do that, they would have to charge a fee of $146 for each one of the, if they could get 16 enrollees. But I think they might be shooting themselves in the foot if they try to do that.
Mike, if I may give my personal opinion on this, just from a policy standpoint, whatever decision is made tonight in terms of non-resident fees, I feel like it should be across the board. Reason for that, I just don't think it, because now it'll be confusing. My personal opinion on what a non-resident pays, especially if it's different for every organization.
And Rex, are you saying non-resident only for co-sponsored, and our non-resident fees would remain 15? Because then you get a difference there as well from the programs that you run. So maybe that's something.
So I'm talking.
No, I know you're just talking the co-sponsored groups right now, but you have the same issue, I guess you would say, if someone's signing up for a Parks and Recreation Department run activity as a non-resident, they pay $15 more. Correct?
Correct.
So then, that's consistent if the co-sponsored are all at 15 as well, which is what our motion was, which is what Village Board approved. So if you want to change it, I think it should go through the budget process for next year. And maybe it's something we look at. Maybe the non-resident for Park and Rec ones need to go up too. I don't know. Maybe it has been raised for however many years you want to raise that, and then co-sponsored.
Or another option, and I don't, this is already getting more muddied than I thought it would as an agenda. You could almost also do a 3-tier. You could do a resident fee, you could do an open enrolled fee, or you could just do a plain old non-resident fee.
Yeah.
Because then the premium payment would be for someone that is coming in from the outside that does not
Open enrolled too, yeah.
benefit our school district either.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe that's something to look at for budget time and look at it overall for co-sponsored and all the Park and Rec programs that, I don't know.
So for
I know that's not on tonight, but just.
yeah, so right now I'm just looking I need someone to make a motion on this of whether you want to keep it at 15 or whether you want to change it
I'll make a motion to keep it at 15 and that we explore, no, skip that. I make a motion that we keep it at 15.
I'll second that. And I think we need to clarify that they are still a co-sponsored,
Right.
they're considered a co-sponsored program, and I don't know if that needs to be in the motion or not. Dean, if you would make a friendly amendment to it.
Okay, I make a motion that we keep it at 15 and that they are still co-sponsored.
I'll second that as well.
Everybody understand?
I don't see how you can be considered not co-sponsored when you're getting in-kind services. It's not like a grassy field out somewhere that we chalk every now and again. You're talking the pool, which gets scheduled for other things, which takes the most maintenance of probably everything we operate. So that's a pretty big in-kind if you're not considered co-sponsored and if you think you don't have to follow the same rules.
Well, and even the insurance part of it, we provide them insurance. So how do you provide insurance to an organization that's not considered co-sponsored? That'd be like giving insurance to someone that rents our ball fields for a league that they're doing. You wouldn't do that because you don't have the control over them. So I think keeping the co-sponsored handle is important for some of those other reasons.
I just thought the whole idea originally was if they were not co-sponsored, they got no help from the village, period.
Right.
It was totally up to them financially.
Yep.
All right, we have a motion and a second to keep it at 15. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Thanks for the explanations on that. That was a good call on that, good pickup on that, because it clarified a lot of things. And I think once it goes back to them too, and they're gonna ask why not,
Right.
that cleans it up.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, we'll move on. B, consider discuss act on request to install fencing for the cricket field at Ashwaubenon Sports Complex. Rex?
Well, this request came from Donovan last meeting. Donovan unfortunately has a prior commitment tonight, so I'll just try and recap. He wanted us to have a discussion on, I believe, what the park board thought on installing or having in our capital improvement plan or even our CORP plan, which I guess is already done, but we can still add it to a capital improvement plan if the board felt it appropriate. A fence, this is a request from some of the cricket players, obviously, that are using our cricket field out at the sports complex. So as you know, how it is located, the northeast corner abuts a cornfield, basically. And apparently some of the balls that are being hit are going into the cornfield, and they're having a hard time finding the balls. So they have asked, or they must have figured out Donovan was part of the board, and asked him what are the chances of having a fence installed there to keep the balls from going into the cornfield area. A couple of challenges with that. You know, you've got the length, 292 feet in length. You know, the question then would be, well, how high do we want it? And do we want a chain link, or do we want it netting that can be taken down? And then, quite honestly, what happens if that cornfield gets developed to something else? We probably will be needing to remove that netting chain link somehow in the future. That could or couldn't happen at any point in the future. I don't know. So I guess my request is just discussion on whether or not you guys feel it's appropriate to include a cricket fence into our capital program.
Do you know how often they play out there, Rex? Is it 3 days a week, 5, 2?
I was initially told that it's used for like women's leagues and then more of the youth league, although sometimes when I go out there, I see all ages using it, which probably means that co-ed is using it as well. They've got a bigger field, and there's 2 fields that I know of in Green Bay, ours and one kind of immediately east of behind the Social Security building on Military Avenue, by that school right behind there. That's their other cricket field where they've got a pitch. So those are the only 2. So I last year they told me it was being used a couple times a week. So 2 or 3 times a week. So fairly often, because there's just not a lot of cricket fields in Green Bay, in the greater Green Bay area, I should say.
How high a fence do they think they would need?
That would be a question for Donovan. I did not talk with them. This was Donovan's agenda item. I'm sure they would want it as high as we would be able to offer to them. You know what I mean? It is a far reach, but I'm gonna probably guess, another 10 or 15 feet tall, probably like the size of a wing on a baseball or softball diamond, I'm guessing. Fences that go down, just off the main backstop.
What is the height of the nets at the soccer fields?
Those are probably 20 feet, 20 or 25 feet.
Does that seem to be sufficient for them?
It does for soccer, because
Soccer,
not only is it 20 or 25 feet, but the nets are set back 20 feet or so from the actual goals.
yeah,
So the balls typically don't get that high. Those were put in to prevent soccer balls from being kicked into
this street,
into Fernando,
Yeah.
and then so they're not rolling all the way to the softball fields. And those were paid for out of park development, if I'm remembering correctly.
Do they have an organized group that would be willing to provide some in-kind for fencing? Because this is kind of a specialized, very specialized, specialized sport. It's, I'm understanding a relatively small group. It may be a large group of people, but a small group compared to the numbers that do other things. Is that an option?
It is a fairly decent-sized group. And again, there's only 2 cricket fields in the area, so it's very condensed. Ashwaubenon, as you know, has a fair amount of Eastern Indian players of that descent. When this when this cricket field was originally built, again, it was spurred by WPS, actually. A number of WPS employees who worked for them at the time played cricket. And so WPS garnered a $5,000 donation to the village to help out with the park development donation, or use of park development funds to create that field. At that time, the cricket group, and I'm sure it is, but I don't think it's like an organized group per se. If they're playing leagues or anything, there might be, but I don't know how, Nancy, how official it is.
Okay.
Like where they've got a board or anything like that. I think it's more loosely structured than some of our normal soccer, baseball, softball groups.
I think
Now,
it's,
we can give it back to Donovan and say, whoever you talk to, say that, an option would be, we'd be okay putting it up, but, you'd have to pay for it, type of a thing, or you'd have to do fundraising or set a fundraising goal for them that, there's different options we can do if you wanted to offer that to the group.
yeah, so I was gonna say, maybe Donovan can get back to them and see, maybe they're part of a cricket organization or association that maybe they have some grants available or something that they could apply for, and find out how high they would like to have it. Find out if, a mesh net would work instead of a chain link. That would be, I would imagine, much cheaper than a chain link, because 292 feet of fence is a long distance. It's a stretch. So I think we need to get more information from Donovan and from the organization, and maybe even invite them here, one of their members here, to talk to us a little bit about it and what they need and how often they play and all that stuff. And then we could make a good informed decision on whether we want it in the CIP and whether we want to go ahead with that and what we want to put into it too.
I agree. It's very hard to say yes or no to a fence when you've got absolutely no idea the size of it or the material or what's involved.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I agree. I guess if we're gonna offer direction, it would be, we need more information, and I think it's a great idea to have somebody come
Yeah.
to a meeting and just
Right.
kind of
Tell us,
present?
yeah, and tell us about their group too. I'd be interested in
I'd be
all
interested, yeah.
who they
I
play
totally
and where they
appreciate it.
play.
We couldn't talk about it at the last meeting because it wasn't part of the agenda.
Wasn't on the agenda, yep.
So this is the information then that we will get, I will make sure Donovan gets back.
And there's nothing in the CORP on this either, is there?
No.
Okay, so I think it's kind of a, in my mindset, it's kind of a moot point if we've got nothing.
Well, I mean, it could be just in a plain old capital improvement plan as well, not necessarily CORP. The CORP has meant a lot for,
Bigger things.
you know, more for grant opportunities. It could go into either one of them. There's a whole other capital improvement plan, which is building replacement, door replacement, backstop replacement. It has everything in it, literally, that we have in our inventory. And part of that is what you see in the next agenda item. You know, a photocopy of some of the 2026 items that we've got in the capital improvement plan, which we'll never be able to fund all of them, quite honestly. But that's what we'll be talking about at the next agenda item.
Do you need a motion on this, Rex, or will you just go back
No,
to
just
Donovan or?
Refer back to Donovan to get more information.
Okay.
All right, good. All right, we'll move on to, C, speaking of CORP. Consider act discussed, 2026 capital project submittals and CORP recommendations. Rex.
All right, so budget season is right around the corner. In fact, we have our budget meeting coming up in August. And so we'll be using from mid-August through September to work with administration on what projects we're going to be able to fund, what projects are on the table, and then what do we have funding for? What does the village have funding for? And then that'll go to the village board for further discussion, obviously. So what I've got in this agenda item, I've got a copy of the recently approved 10-year CORP plan. You can see what has been going on in 25, and you can see what's on tap for 2026. If you take a look also after the CORP plan, it's just a plain old black and white sheet. That is part of the capital improvement plan. And each year in the capital improvement plan, there's even more projects, roof replacements, sidewalk, there's everything in the capital improvement plan as well, including all the CORP projects. So let's just look at the CORP stuff right now. I guess we'll start there. If we take a look at what's happening in 2025, is there anything that needs to be pushed? So we've got the design for the band shell that's being worked on, the band shell with power run and installation that hopefully will happen this year. Ashwaubenon shoreline stabilization wildlife viewing areas as part of the NRDA grant. That is in process right now. Village board will be getting, I don't want to get too far off topic on this. The NRDA funding has kind of been frozen right now by national politics. However, the DNR has found somewhat of a workaround on that. The federal government is not, which I get, is not excited about giving federal funds directly to individual municipalities. What the DNR has found is that if they are requesting funds, the DNR, they are able to get these NRDA funds released directly to the DNR. And then if individual municipalities want to use them, so that's a whole new funding mechanism, the individual municipality pays any invoices up front with its own money. And then we submit invoices to the DNR, and the DNR reimburses us within a 30-day time period. So we already have, this will be going to the village board as soon as this month, because we already have a draft done by the DNR, because we've had several meetings on this already to try and keep this project moving forward. So it'll be going to the village board regarding that revised funding mechanism, I believe this month.
So is the money then guaranteed, Rex?
That's part of what the agreement states. Yeah, like we're not going to
Put
do
it out and
anything
then we
unless
can-
the
yeah.
DNR tells us in writing that the funding is, the funding
Secure.
is there. and that we will be reimbursed for our expenses that are brought forward. So, so that is probably more of a 2026, 27 project. The shoreline stabilization isn't gonna happen this year. Entertainment district, create a mini park in the entertainment district. Jerome Van Sistine Park is under construction as we speak. They have started to dig things out. They have laid concrete pathways. The water line, drain tile are now in place. I believe they're gonna be doing staking Thursday and Friday, or Wednesday and Friday, for the bollard lighting as well as the concrete curbing around the playground area. So that is moving. So that will be done this year. Ashwaubenon, continue to trail around the park. Circle the exterior of the park to the bridge. That's our phase 3 of the trail. That is happening. In fact, we're looking at Northeast coming in within the next week or two to do final grading of the trail. Gravel's already in place. They'll be grading the trail, and I'm gonna guess, because they're gonna be in the village doing street reconstruction as well, repaving and remilling. I'm gonna guess that the paving will probably be done in the next 3 to 5 weeks, ballpark guess, of the trail. And then basically then in late August, September, it'll be the landscaping being done. So that one's going. Argonne Park, install boardwalk through the woods, done. Smith Park, gathering area, not done. And Ashwaubenon Lake replaced the metal playground structure. That has been done, and that's completed. We did that. We bought that structure, $50,000 structure, this past spring, and our own crews did a great job installing it, and I see tons of kids on it. I just was over there today for about half an hour and checking things out, and it's being well used. So the only thing in 2025 that was not done is the gathering area, seating area. For Smith, we also did not buy any amenities for the gathering seating area at Waterford, even though we've got the concrete pad there, and we've held off on that because we've got so many other projects. We've got Element Way, we've got the boardwalk, and we've got the Ashwaubenon River Trail, which is over budget, and we're trying to kind of reel things in a little bit till we see how those larger projects settle out dollar-wise and what park development funds need to be pulled to finish those. And then if we can get some of that information, if we're comfortable with that dollar amount, and we also have the band shell, because that's gonna be partly funded out of park development as well. Some of the utility work, which is park development eligible, as well as I believe the village is also gonna fund some soil remediation. But we're kind of waiting to use park development for some of these gathering areas, smaller projects, until the bigger projects we get a better grasp on final cost. Because the trail is over by a fair amount of money due to much deeper than expected dirt before we're hitting solid clay. So then we had to go down in some areas 4, 5, 6 feet before we hit clay, and then we have to fill that in with either sand or stone. So that's more material being trucked out, more stable material being trucked in, therefore higher costs. So really the only thing that we need to push is the park gathering area from 25. All the other ones are doing well.
Rex, I just want to say nice job on you did a lot of work this year. This is great. You got a lot done, big projects.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Tracy. Sometimes it's a little frustrating because there's a lot of little things that I'm trying to make sure are not missed. And it's been a challenge with a lot of stuff going on. But thank you. It's been fun. All of these have been on our list to do for a number of years now, so it's exciting to see them come to fruition. 2026. So a couple things we don't have to worry about dollar-wise. The kayak launch at this point that probably will be coming, if the funding goes through, and we get the agreement with the DNR signed, you know, yada, yada, that'll be through that NRDA grant. So let's just not even talk about that. So the things that we've got tabbed in 2026 are Waterford Park pathway reconstruction, Canterbury Park playground equipment, the school bus and the structure. Tracy, do you remember when I'm gonna guess that structure is probably 25 years old at Canterbury, if not, maybe
Yeah,
longer,
at least, yes, I would say, yep,
if not longer.
if not more than that, yeah.
It's not a big one, and we're not gonna put another big one, we're not gonna put a big one in, but it's probably time. It's starting to get a little loosey-goosey in some spots. It's probably time, you know, usually our number is 25 years for playground equipment replacement. So that's probably next up, or one of the ones next up. We had this on for a couple of years now and it just hasn't gotten done. Replace the drinking fountain at the sports complex with a multi-level option. For one, you know, have a dog fountain and then have a high-low bubbler, similar to what we're putting in over at Element Way. Sports complex, extend the crusher dust pathway. We've got the nice pathway behind the softball diamonds, coming up around the softball diamonds, going to the shelter there. I think it'd be great to extend that pathway between the soccer fields and the tree line of the airport, all the way to Fernando, and then have that loop around the soccer fields as well. There's quite a few people that use that trail that live in Waterford Heights apartments and the apartments that are the Layden Drive apartments, I think they are. And, you know, if you've been out there in the last 6 months, you'll see another fairly large housing development happening,
Yeah,
you know, right there on West Main. Yeah,
right there.
like right on top, you know, next to our trail. So there'll be more people there that'll be using the playground and the trail as a real park and not just a sports area. People that are living there. So that is an option to move forward to for funding. Pioneer Court tennis upgrades, that doesn't necessarily come from park development. Some of it may need to come from the village and or park development, though. We've got $100,000 from Cornerstone for the relocation of those tennis courts. And that's sitting in an account right now. So that'll be a project that probably happens. So really, we don't have a lot of decisions to make. You know, do we want to do the Waterford Park Trail, Canterbury Park? You know, the other playground area that I would ask for consideration on, or we can look at it for 27, which is where it is, I believe, in our in the CORP plan. But it's also, we're doing a lot of stuff in Ashwaubenon, and we've got some older equipment, not the pirate ship, not the rope climber, not the stuff with rubberized surfacing, but we've got some climbing structures on the very north end of the playground. And we've been doing a lot of stuff in Ashwaubenon, and quite honestly, once the trail is built and this NRDA project comes in, that's almost like, well, to me, will be the coup de grace on Ashwaubenon. You know, then everything has literally been rejuvenated, and will be good for a long time. So to me, Ashwaubenon has become so much of a flagship park now. Not that it always wasn't, but I think it's a lot more in public eye with the special events we've been having there, the food truck rallies, all the soccer stuff, the lake, everything. I think I'm going to request like a showcase type playground. I mean, something nicer with some height and things like that that's out there. Doesn't have to be done in 26, could be done in 27. You know, maybe it's time that we, you know, do some of our neighborhood parks first, you know, like Canterbury. Up to the group, and quite honestly, up to what funding is available. So, thoughts on projects. Now, if you take a look, keep on going, I'm talking a lot. Keep on going to the last page where it says Planet All Projects. So that is part of the capital improvement projects. So there's other projects out there too that aren't necessarily part of the CORP plan. For instance, we had to spend a couple $1,000s this year because we were starting to get leaks at on the chalet roofing, where it goes around. Specifically, we spent a couple $1,000s out of repairs to buildings and equipment to repair some leaks that we had in the boys and girls changing room area, because those are partially covered. H&S Roofing came out, took a look at it. I don't remember the last time the chalet was ever re-roofed. It wasn't re-roofed during my tenure.
I don't think we did it either when I was there. I don't remember doing it.
And you worked for, what, 14 years?
12.
12. 32 years right now. for the
Believe it.
rough. So it's time. There's literally no grit left on any of the roofing tiles. And if we're going to do that, we probably ought to, the roof on the picnic shelter, the lake picnic shelter, and the roof on the cafe, probably do them all at once type of a thing. So I was hoping to have an estimate for you tonight. I don't have that, but I know we had an estimator out from a roofing company last Friday to take a look at that. So I'm going to guess that'll be around 35,000, maybe 40,000 to do all three of those. That's just a guess. So we've got that. That one I need to submit. That's going to have to happen in the next couple of years. I don't think that can really be pushed because we're starting to have leaking problems. And once you have one leaking problem, you're going to have more leaking problems. There's the Canterbury Park Playground, AS Sports Complex shade awning replacement. Those are the big shade awnings that cover our metal structure framing. So those awnings probably cost $7,000 or $8,000 a piece for the ones of that size. We had to, I think we replaced one 2 years ago during a windstorm. It ripped and somehow fortunately our insurance company replaced it for us, and I want to say that was what a new one runs these days. So we're going to need to get another new one of those, because those are vintage 2000. Those are probably almost 25 years old, and we've typically, when they rip, we bring them in and we have them re-sewn, but they're really starting to disintegrate right now where the sewing isn't doing it anymore. So we're probably going to need to do some shade replacement. There's a spot on the West Main Avenue Trail that will need to come out of our budget. It's kind of an odd situation. It's right across from Shopko Optical on the south side of the West Main Avenue Trail. There's a driveway that goes in to a business, and for some reason on this particular driveway, they put in like a flat curb instead of having all asphalt. And so that curb on both sides of the trail, think of this table as the trail, and there's literally a strip of curbing that goes right across the trail, but it's flat. And then it kind of ramps up to like a higher curb all the way to the building. That is falling apart. It really is falling apart, and quite honestly, it's dangerous, and that needs to probably be dug out and replaced, whether it's with curbing again or whether it's all asphalt. It remains to be seen how we do it. I've had several discussions with Public Works about that, but we need to do something safety-wise on that. Bleacher replacement, we can push that. Ashwaubenon Marina walkway maintenance. What that is, if you get a chance to go to the Ashwaubenon Marina, again, that's been probably 20 to 25 years in existence, 25 for the marina
25.
itself. Pretty close, maybe 23. Those bricks are, the material underneath the bricks over those 23 or so years is starting to slough into the rocks. The rock slope going down to the marina. So what's happening is now the bricks are sinking and you've got the concrete curbing. Now that the bricks are sinking and you've got concrete curbing that's sticking up an inch or two in many places, which is a pretty bad tripping hazard.
I was gonna say, we walk that several months out of the year. The Ashwaubenon Walking Club is there, and there are spots where you have to watch where they are trip hazards.
Yep. So, two ways to tackle this. Either pull out the bricks, add in more material and have the bricks leveled again, or totally tear the bricks out and just do a concrete walkway. They do a lot of neat concrete stamping right now where it still has a good look to it, very similar to like up by the Chief Ashwaubenon Memorial. So that would be my recommendation, is to do more of a stamped concrete. But regardless, that's gonna be a huge project, cost-wise. Like, I don't know if we could handle it all at once. It might have to be done in sections, but that needs to be, we need to start tackling that. We can't keep pushing that. Bell needs to start on some CPR mannequin replacement. That's gonna be a couple $1,000. The park gathering areas are still out there. Probably in the next couple of years, we're gonna need to take a look at the Smith Park court maintenance. We're starting to get some pretty good size cracks in the Smith Park basketball and tennis court. Maybe that's the time we also look at whether or not we want to turn some of that space into a pickleball court or pickleball courts. That was one of my first projects to redo those courts when I started, so I wanna say those were done in 2006. So those courts have lasted us 19 years. Not too bad. Usually you have to we're getting towards the end of the life of those courts. They're still okay. We've had them patched in the past, and we can also always do the patching again. But patching those courts by having someone come in, whether it be Valley Seal Coat or, I think that's too large of an area for our own guys to do it. We did Canterbury on our own last year, and that took like weeks to have one of our guys do, and he was able to do it. But that's probably gonna be, that court maintenance, I'm gonna guess, would be 40 or 50,000. If you're gonna be starting to spend that amount of money, you might wanna look at just blowing it up and remilling it and starting it again. And do we want 2 tennis courts and 2 basketball courts, or do we wanna add in somehow some pickleball courts in there? Take out a tennis court and add in 2 pickleballs? I don't know. So we got that coming up. Entertainment, art, soccer goal replacements, we can probably push the soccer goal stuff. Ashwaubenon roadway reconstruction, some of this stuff is just in there as a placeholder, and I keep pushing it back until we need to do it. But the northern half of the figure 8 in Ashwaubenon is starting to get pretty rough. I've been patching it, basically. The company's been coming in and patching up some of the deteriorating spots for us the last couple of years. But that probably will need to be reconstructed in the near future. Mike Van Park improvements, we can probably push. Ashwaubenon boat launch reconstruction, that could be part of the CDA program. So, I'm sorry, guys, a lot of information. We've got the CORP plan, we've got capital improvement plan. Thoughts on what you think some priorities are that I can start working on, putting things together for when I meet with administration?
Question on, we didn't, or you didn't hit on the Forester pickup truck or the flatbed truck for forestry.
Totally different pot of money.
Yeah.
That's vehicle replacement, so we don't need to worry about that. That'll just be, I talk with administration and they tell me if there's enough money to replace it. Quite honestly, it'll depend on if we need like a big fire truck, which takes $500,000. If not, then we'll probably be able to get the forestry pickup truck, I'm guessing, without an issue. Tim and our park maintenance guys have been real high. Public Works bought a Bobcat Toolcat, which they say works great in a lot of our own application, so they've been boring it and using it almost as much as what Public Works is using it for. So we'll talk about whether or not we want to purchase one as well. So that would give the village two, to be determined if that's needed or not. But typically, Ron, the vehicles are done more in-house.
One of the things I don't see in here at all, Rex, which I think we need to keep in mind, is the path on Packerland from Cormier, I guess it doesn't go quite to Cormier, but just south of Cormier, all the way down to Wabi is in really bad shape. And we need to look at reconstructing that piece. And the other part of it is right now we're looking at a safe crossing, a couple of safe crossings from the east side and all the residents that are over there to be able to get safely over to that trail. We've had a lot of requests for that. So I think it's going to become busier. And right now it's in bad shape now. So, and it's not on here. The only thing on here about Packerland is extending it south. I think we need to make sure we're taking care of the pieces we have and making sure they're safe, because that north end is really getting bad.
So some of that was discussed over the last couple of years with inside. And what was brought up to me was that much of that trail is, some of it's in Ashwaubenon, but a lot of it is in Hobart. And that Hobart should contribute to the actual cost of rebuilding that trail. I know we put it in initially, and we probably used our TID dollars to put that trail in. But that being said, it is in Hobart, a lot of those stretches. And the question is, should we be working with Hobart to contribute to that? And if they don't want to contribute, then what do we do?
Well, and that trail, I think, was originally put in when Packerland was reconstructed. It was part of that project, and I think Brown County did it and put it in. And I don't remember if Ashwaubenon paid for it or Hobart or whoever. I thought it was all part of that big project. But I would like to know, Rex, I hear that all the time, that Hobart owns most of it. I don't think they own a lot of it, and I would love to get a map showing this piece is Ashwaubenon's, this is Hobart, this is Lawrence, or whoever else is tied into it. So we know, we can make a good informed decision and then reach out to that other municipality and say, hey, this trail is in poor shape. And I don't know, is even Brown County part of that responsibility? I don't know. They originally built it. It was part of that project. So maybe it's reach out to them and say, hey, you know, this trail's in poor shape. Well, maybe they'll step up. I don't know. Or maybe we can apply for a grant for it. Reconstruction stuff, though. But I just think we need to get good information so we can make a good decision on how that's done. And keep saying, instead of keep saying it's Hobart's, we can't do anything, it's all Hobart's, because that's all I keep hearing. It's like, tell me what's Hobart's. Let me know exactly what we're talking. Is it 3 miles of it? Is it a half a mile? I don't know.
I can easily put together a map that shows the
Thank you.
Ashwaubenon stretches, and we can bring it out at the next park board meeting.
That's a good point, Tracy. You can't even begin to make a plan a decision or map out a plan without knowing that.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Should we be considering metal roofing at Ashwaubenon for the stuff rather than throwing back up something that's gonna deteriorate again?
Just get a price on it, nothing else, you know?
I mean, you could. I would, and I don't know that much about roofs, Ron. I know with the steep slope of the chalet roofing, that it doesn't need to be replaced as often, which is probably why it's lasted over 30 years right now. You know, because there's not a lot of water that accumulates and stays on the roof. I mean, it sloughs off right away because of that slope.
Well, sometimes you get an insurance break too with the metal.
Sure. You know, I'm sure it just has to do with cost. And that certainly can be something that we look at what. That's a huge roof that it'd be interesting to see what the sound would be inside with a metal roof if it rains. I don't know. I don't know, are you familiar?
Well, I'd like to see us at least see what the dollars and cents are, so we don't make an informed decision on.
Sure.
Not just dollars and cents, but there's other issues with metal roofs. If you talk to, somebody that works in fire, you know, they would, you know, not saying that's a bad idea, but yeah, just make sure we're weighing everything. You know, not just dollars, but, you know, what are the pros and cons physically of the materials?
Well,
I think
like
it's
I say, I think the insurance would be a factor that might help offset.
Aesthetically, I think for that particular type of building, shingles would look better than metal, just because, I mean, we're still trying to give that natural park type look with our wooden picnic shelters and stuff, but but I'm sure they make different types of roofing that has different looks to it, metal roofing. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not looking for a red roof barn.
Like, when I lived out west, all the Wiener Schnitzels were red roof. You knew if you were coming up on a Wiener Schnitzel, which is a hot dog restaurant. They all had exactly that same kind of roof, and they were red. You can see them coming 2 miles away.
Rex, with the kayak launch too, being in 2026, I know we had a company come to us that was interested in doing rental kayaks. Are we gonna reach back to them, or what are your thoughts on that?
Not until we know exactly when. It could be 26 or it could be 27. I'm gonna guess the kayak launch will be one of the last things, so it could easily be in 27. So there's a couple options when we get there. Probably not till, you know, discussion on this will probably take place in 26 at this level, I think. But there's the option to have a company run it for us. There's also a number of places in the Fox Valley that have kayak launches. Do what's called just a self-serve
Yep.
kayak kiosk.
Kayak Wisconsin does that.
What's that?
Kayak Wisconsin does that. They have quite a few spots around here.
Yeah, and it's just like
An app.
a metal cage, basically, and there's like 6 individual doors, and you swipe your credit card, you punch in what door you want, you open that door, and a kayak comes out.
Oh, cool.
You know, you just pull a kayak out with with oars, and you can go kayaking, and then typically it's like a 2-hour window, and then apparently the system can tell if the kayak is back in there. And if you're using it for 3 or 4 hours, it just charges you extra by the hour until that kayak is returned.
Oh, cool.
So that's another option, really, and then, because if we did that, then all we really need to do is buy the unit and put it on a concrete pad.
But you would still allow individuals to launch from there.
Oh, absolutely.
But you're just saying,
Sure, yep.
Lily Lake has it, the Duck Creek Quarry has it, Wrightstown where they do the water skiing, that's where the biggest one is there, and you register online and it's all taken care of, and you unlock it with your phone and off you go.
Cool.
That's easy peasy.
It really is. You don't have to lug the kayak there and get it up on top.
So
Where exactly is the kayak launch going?
in the old,
In theory?
it would be put in the old boat launch area,
Okay.
in the creek.
Thank you. That question has come up several times.
Rex, are you wanting us to prioritize some of these projects for
I'm
26?
just looking for thoughts, direction, you know, like, are you good with, you know, like, let's take playground equipment. Are you good with Canterbury this year? Do we want to try and do Canterbury and Ashwaubenon? Do you want to keep Ashwaubenon in 27 and just do Canterbury? You know, what about, you know, like prioritizing, like Tracy, you know, brought up the Packerland Trail, but that needing a lot of work. What's the priority, Packerland Trail or the Marina Trail? Guarantee you we'll only get a couple of projects.
But you're also looking at capital projects being woven into that priority listing.
Yep.
Well, I'm all about maintaining safety of what we currently have. So if something is deteriorating and needs to be replaced, I think that's important.
Yep.
Rather than just kicking the can down the road again.
So I'll just start I'll throw out some suggestions and to get this ball rolling, and you steer me in the right direction. So I would say we do the Canterbury Park Playground. I would say, I'd like to chalk off that drinking fountain. That's not gonna be that expensive. It's gonna be $5,000 or $6,000. That's a nice amenity to have out there, because so many people walk their dogs in that area and bring their dogs to the softball games and whatnot that play out there. We can probably push the Waterford Park pathway, as bad a shape as that's in, we can probably push that, because I would say both the Packerland Trail and the Marina Trail are worse. And so that goes to the Crusher Dust Path behind the softball field, or behind the soccer fields. A lot of that can be done by our own staff, so really that's just a
Maintenance.
dollar amount for the stone. Because of that length of that, I probably still would want that as a budget item, because I can't take that out of my own budget. That's probably gonna be, $6,000 worth of stone at, maybe even $7,000 or $8,000 worth of stone. But we're gonna get a long distance for a decent amount of money. Tennis court upgrades, we need to get estimates on that, and that's a whole nother project.
Well, it sounded like the driveway repair definitely needed to be done.
The
To
West
me,
Main Avenue.
when you went
driveway
through
repair,
that.
Yeah, that needs to be done. I mean,
On West Main,
yeah.
on West Main,
Yeah.
yeah.
So then the question is, how do you want to prioritize the Marina Trail versus the Packerland Trail? That's what's kind of left on the table right now.
I think we need to get the information on Packerland Trail before we can make a decision on that. And I think the Marina Trail definitely needs work. I mean, like Nancy said, I've been out there too, and there's trip hazards, and it needs to be taken care of.
But does it all need to be replaced, or are there sections that need to be addressed for now?
Right.
I agree,
Yes.
we need to know Packerland.
So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to have dollar amounts for you by the time that you need, because this is kind of, I've tried to get people out to give me some estimates on the Packerland Trail in the past, and it's been difficult at best, and just with the logistics, I guess
Could we use the?
it's one or the other, regardless of the cost and who owns it. What is your priority between the two? And that's probably where I would focus on. I'm gonna spin it, put it back on, like, I'm not gonna be able to get everything done, you know what I mean? So, but I can get some things done. Marina or Packerland, how do you want me to focus on this?
Well, if we get something done with the crossover on Packerland, that's gonna increase the
It's gonna increase the
traffic
use.
out there.
Yep.
Now, I don't know where the thoughts on a cross path is, but
Yeah, I mean, they're looking at, as part of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee is updating our bicycle and pedestrian plan, and part of that is looking at Packerland Crossing, and maybe looking at 2 different sites potentially, but getting some more confirmation on that. So, I'm sure it won't be in 2026 it will be done. Maybe it's a 2027 project, Ron, when they finally get the crossing in there. But the trail, like you said, there's gonna be a lot more people that are gonna feel comfortable heading over there, and I think you're gonna get more use than we have on it now, because people feel comfortable heading there.
is it a safety hazard currently, I guess is the question.
There are parts that are really in poor shape, and a tire could, someone hiking on it could get a tire stuck in it and wipe out. And it's very rough. I mean, when you're riding on there, you are like this the whole time. I think walking probably isn't as bad.
It's kind of sort of an apples and oranges thing, because really that Packerland Trail is, I would say, just a generalization, more heavily used by people on bikes.
Yeah.
Whereas the River Trail is most definitely used more by people walking. And I think I see kind of the same amount of traffic, but it's different kinds of traffic. So I guess it comes down to which is in worse shape, really.
Yeah. And I think, Rex, that's your call. You go and look at them. See, but I still would like to know the information on Packerland, like
I
who
agree.
owns what and all that stuff, just to,
Well,
So we
that's
can-
the thing too, is how do you prioritize? We know who's responsible for the marina.
right,
We
it's
don't know
us,
Exactly.
who's responsible for the whole
right,
Packland, so how do you
yeah, how do you make a
prioritize
decision?
it right
Right,
now? Yeah.
yeah. Do you need us to prioritize this evening?
Well, budgets are gonna be due, and there's minimal time to get them done with everything that we're already doing this summer, so. I was hoping to get a prioritization, but I can try and see where each one goes, and I guess we could run with whatever one gets us the best information within the time needed before the budget is due.
I mean, with Packerland, you recently had Industrial Park Trail done. You could use the cost for that as, to your estimate for Packerland, or you could use the cost that you got for Ashwaubenon Extension Trail to give you at least a good concrete, a good base that you can say, this is how much it potentially would be to do Packerland, because those are very comparable projects in, the same width of the path and all of that stuff. So I think you could get some good numbers by using those projects that are very recent, if you cannot get someone to give you an exact cost on Packerland.
I also
I can
agree.
get the cost, but it's whether or not people are gonna want other entities to contribute to the payment of it. You know what I mean? And that's gonna, so are we doing it on our own, or is Hobart gonna be chipping in? So we can make some initial phone calls, it's just whether or not any other of the other entities are able to commit to the cost.
Can this come back up in August or our meeting?
Is that too late?
What's that? We can probably revisit this in August if I can get some information compiled prior to that. But I'll be honest with you, I mean, there's vacation times involved and things like that, so.
I guess for me, if it sounds like it's a timing issue, coming to crunch time, if we had to make a decision today, or I had to go one way or another, knowing that both of them are needed, well, we know what we have with the marina. There's a lot of unknowns. I would have to say, hey, if we have to make a decision tonight, I would prioritize the marina.
This can still be brought back to August, Chris?
Right.
So, I mean, we can keep that in mind.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm not saying that's in
as an
stone, but if
option,
we
yeah,
had
but-
to make that,
mean-
if you wanted to go a direction just to start
Yeah.
planning some things. But yeah, I think everybody here is in agreement if we get some more information for the next meeting, on the Packerland situation.
I also agree that we should be looking at maintaining what we've got, that if it's a question of we've only got X number of dollars and we've got things that need to be fixed. I'm also thinking of the chalet. Yes, I know what roofing costs are, but now if you have a leaking building and you have interior rot and you have, now all of a sudden, you're not just taking care of the outside, you're reconstructing the inside. So the things that need the repairs the most should be the ones that we're addressing first. And while it's great to add new stuff, if we're not maintaining what we've got, what's the point?
Right.
Okay,
I would say make the chalet number one.
okay.
Well, we're looking at the roofing. Is there anything else, though, that we should also be doing at the chalet? Well, from practicality and usefulness
I mean,
standpoint. and
yeah,
things like
the
that.
chalet is 50 years old. I mean, it was built in 74, 75. We spent 25,000 a couple of years ago on the
Deck.
Jack.
the viewing deck on the backside, which turned out great. They love that. It's sturdy. It's working well. If we're to do anything in the chalet, and again, it's not needed, but it would be a good upgrade, is the showers. Because the showers are they're gang showers, if you know what a gang, you know, with the posts and multiple heads coming off of them, and they, sometimes with the smaller kids, they hurt because of the pressure, and they're old, and I don't have any idea what that will cost. I'm sure there's replumbing involved and stuff like that, but they're working right now, but that's something I think at some point in the future we need to look at in terms of getting new shower areas within there. We're certainly ones that don't hurt.
Rex, are there any on this list, the all projects list, like Ron was asking about the Forester's truck and the flatbed truck, that are funded elsewhere? So are some of these maintenance type things, I know you put money in the budget for maintenance. Do some of them fall into that category that would not be considered a capital item that could be funded elsewhere? Because, you know, some of these things you just have to do. I mean, you have to re-roof the chalet. I think you have to fix that West Main Trail, the driveway repair. So
No, I
you
mean,
know?
not that I can take out of the money that's already there. I mean, maybe the Mike Van Park improvements, you know, but again, that's not a high priority anyway for that, for next year.
Yeah.
It's just something that's in there, kind of a placeholder, like we need to do something there in the future, because there's like a newer playground and an older playground, and what do we want to keep in the older playground? The wood beams are rotting all around, and we, you know, I could talk for hours on different projects that we have, literally hours, seriously.
Oh, sure.
And so, but everything short of some things that Mike Van would probably need to be funded from, would need to have special money assigned to it.
When we were talking about the new band shell and bringing more people in and stuff, and I think I asked whether it should be a CORP item, the accessibility for the bathrooms over there at the community center, I think you said that was something that could come out of building maintenance. Is that accurate?
That would not be my decision. That would be people above me, that decision. I mean, the bathrooms over there, and I get what you're saying. The bathrooms there are somewhat accessible. They are accessible. It's just that the doors are heavy, but we also have the accessible bathroom at the main entrance, that's single bathroom, which is a different type, which easily opens. If you know which one I'm talking about, right after the Bukowski activity room. That's a handicapped bathroom. And that is used quite a bit by people as
Families.
well.
Families use that. too.
Families and I've seen people in wheelchairs going in there and so on and so forth. Because everything in there is either uncensored or, it's a little bit, the other ones are also. So I know what you're saying, Ron, but it's probably not, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's not gonna be a priority for funding this year.
So is it basically the doors, Ron, so to have a push button so that you can push the button and the doors will open? Is that really what the concern is with those?
Yeah, so that if you've got somebody in a wheelchair or whatever, if they're by themselves,
Yep.
so that you can hit the door, just like you've got on the
Right-
front
right-
door.
right
of the
now-
building.
right
You
now-
Hit the
Yes.
door and you can get in and out.
The bathrooms meet ADA requirements right now. They're all ADA, now, there's different levels of ADA ease of use, but right now, all of the bathrooms meet ADA requirements.
And I'm not telling you they don't meet ADA. I'm looking at it from a standpoint of the people that don't get around very well. We're gonna encourage more of those people to come when we've got the band show.
Yeah.
And I think we ought to make it user-friendly.
Good point.
And that's my personal opinion.
Sure, no, I
That's a
I
good
get
point.
it.
That's very good.
I think I've said it before, I mean, it was originally discussed making the entrances to those bathrooms similar to how the mall has their bathroom entrances over by the food court. Where there's no doors.
Yeah.
You can just walk in and out. And dollar-wise, that was taken out because we had to have some additional cost savings to build the community center. But that's how we originally discussed the bathrooms at our community center, to have them as no doors. And then they were designed, when spaced out now, so I don't think it's possible to do that design anymore, to retrofit. You'd have to do the button things.
Be interesting to know how much that would cost.
Yeah,
Is
I was
it,
gonna
you know,
say
is it
if-
$10,000? Is it $1,000? I have
What-
no clue. To at least, maybe on the next agenda, we could look at that a little more and see what that cost would be. Guess that's a good point.
Rex, in this budgeting process, do you ever get any sense of what estimated dollar amount you have to work with initially when trying to set up all this stuff and prioritize? Or is it kind of like a shot in the dark?
So we've always, I don't want to say been frugal, but we've always been fairly reasonable about what really needs to be done. And I put those projects forward as well as projects and equipment from every department. Public Works has their projects, Public Safety has their projects, so they all get put onto one big list, and then there are individual meetings with department heads by our village manager and our village president to go over the projects that have been submitted and the merit, I guess, of each one of those projects or each one of those pieces of equipment that we're asking for. And then basically we are, that is discussed, and then we're told, here's what our thoughts are, here's what we're going to bring forward to the village board. And then, it's up to the village board to determine whether or not those are all acceptable during the budget process, or if the village board wants to add in more projects.
Well, see, therein lies the rub, is you really don't know in advance, or at least a ballpark idea from the village board as to what you have to work with, so you come up with all these numbers that are funneling into you from whatever, you have it, and then you're trying to make a blind list of priorities, send it to the village board, but you have no idea what the approximate number is from year to year of something that you have to kind of work with.
And that's what we do. I mean, our finance director is obviously involved in all of these decision-making processes of how much money that he or she would be estimating is coming in based on the tax rate. How much does the village president, village manager / village board, how much do they wish to increase the tax rate? Because every one of these projects potentially will add money onto the tax rate, especially the larger ones, like the Packerland Trail, like the Marina Trail, that type of thing. I mean, we can absorb some hits and we can absorb some larger projects every so often within our department, but there's a lot, we have a lot of facilities. So my job is to try and weed out what we can push back and then what can't be pushed back, what needs the attention. And that's
Maybe
the way
looking
the
at
process has been.
an historical record of what was actually awarded from the previous year, and you got that at least as a ballpark figure for us to kind of look at.
It varies,
Okay, we got,
varies greatly every year, Dean, based on different tax rates, money from the state, whether there's other issues happening within the village. It's not as, I mean, I can easily get you an average, but
I
I'll
could
be
vary.
honest, it wouldn't mean that much. It really depends on a lot of other factors that we have no control over.
Well, we got one priority, and that's the chalet.
Rex, are any of the projects listed could be funded through TIF and/or park development fees, or do none of them qualify for that? Because that's a totally different funding source again.
TID 3 is probably gonna be, that's what did the bridge at Ashwaubenon as
Yeah.
well as the trail.
Because could that be used for the marina area?
It could be, I believe the marina is within the TID 3 area. But a lot of those projects have to be earmarked, because they're trying to close TID 3
Yeah, I
out.
know they're trying to close it, yeah.
yeah, so.
So maybe that'd be something to check on,
That
cause then,
window is closing very quickly.
yeah, I
And the
know,
only reason we're doing the trail is because that's been earmarked for years.
right.
Yeah. So, are you good with Canterbury Park playground equipment is, because I want to do at least one playground a year. I think we have to, because we've got 16 playgrounds. So Canterbury's a smaller dollar amount. If we do one of these bigger trail projects that might still be able to be fit in,
Sounds good.
we would push Ashwaubenon to 27.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so Canterbury Park is our number 2 priority.
You guys tell me.
Yep.
Thoughts? Canterbury number 2?
Yep.
Problem with that?
Yeah.
And then probably either the marina or Packerland is number 3 for a bigger project.
Right,
Sounds good.
yeah.
And quite honestly, because of the length of both trails, I mean, there's a lot of concrete that would need to be done at the marina. There's a lot of asphalt that would need to be done on Packerland. It might not all get done at the same time, like we may have to do a stretch this year, a stretch next year, and kind of push it out, depending upon what money is available and what the estimated cost is per foot. Just FYI, might not all be able to be done at one time.
Right.
But we do that with a lot of projects where we kind of stretch it out. And that we've been successful that way too. Like the Ashwaubenon River Trail. You know, we did.
Yeah.
The marina, you know, we got it, Bay Harbor condominiums, then we did it behind Alden Station, and then the next section was the bridge, and now we're doing it, you know, that's like a 5-part project. That wasn't all done in one big swoop. So I would imagine some of these other things would be done the same way.
Okay.
Okay, well, that gives me, unless someone has some other thing that they would like to bring up, that certainly gives me some good direction on what I need to get rolling on here. Because I'm starting to get some numbers together.
I mean, if there's a ton of money left over, you know, I could come up with 4 and 5. There's that driveway that needs to be repaired.
On West Main,
West Main, yeah, I mean, if that's a safety
that could be number
hazard,
3, really.
You know,
That-
there's,
almost has to be done, you know, because someone's gonna get hurt on it, and then the village will be liable, because we've known about it for the last 10 years and haven't fixed it.
let's put the driveway on there as well.
Okay.
What about that crusher dust?
That's a small enough project where that might have some.
That's what I was gonna say, you might be able to fit that in your regular budget, especially if you guys
Well,
are.
I get 50,000 for buildings and equipment, and that
There you go,
goes pretty quick, because that'll take a huge chunk of that.
yeah.
And, yeah.
So Rex, what do we have for our list here?
We've got the Canterbury Park Playground. We've got, that's number 2. Number 1 is the Chalet. Number 3 is the West Main Avenue Trail. Number 4 could be either or the Marina Trail and or Packerland. And that on top of, you know, any other general maintenance that will need to be done.
Why don't we make the Marina Trail first, or number 4, because we know where the funding would coming from. The Packerland Trail, there's questions left open as to where some of the funding would come from.
So do the Marina Trail solely as number 4? Is that what you're saying?
Probably.
Regardless, you'll still get some funding, or I'll try and get numbers for you for the next August.
Yes.
You kind of have those two together, right? Packerland and Marina?
Kind of an
I'll be
either or.
working on getting an estimate on both of them.
Yeah.
Or at least talking with people about checking out Brown County for funding. So, again, I don't know, Brown County is interested because they don't consider that part of their trail. I can ask them, just FYI. They are,
Okay, I'll have to go down there.
that's what happens when I talk a lot these days. They are doing architectural drawings to continue the Ashwaubenon River Trail behind New Water to go into the fairgrounds. That's currently in process right now.
Okay.
Robert E. Lee is actually designing it for him. So, I don't know how excited they're gonna be about doing multiple trails, but FYI, Brown County is looking at extending our Ashwaubenon River Trail into the fairgrounds and over to the Perkovsky Boat Launch, and picking that up on their dime. Which will be interesting behind New Water, because there's a lot of security issues there they'll have to deal with. They'll probably have to put a lot of riprap out there with the trail to get a base, so that'll be an interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like they're willing to do it though, from
They are.
what I've heard, so, which is great, you know. That'll be a nice addition.
All right, do you need anything else from us, Rex?
Nope, that gives me, I just wanted to get it out there so everyone can kind of know what we're working on and what some of the yings and yangs are of the different projects. Because I know you'll have questions on all of them as we continue forward at some point, so.
Yeah. All right, items for next agenda. I think we got a couple already, right?
We do. I would like to bring something forward too. I've asked David Rohrig, our recreation supervisor, to come up with a kind of a list of what other municipalities charge for some of their field rental costs. We haven't updated our field rental, i.e. baseball, softball, soccer, for a long time. Ours are still very reasonable. In the meantime, our maintenance costs have gone up, and certainly our utility costs have gone up as it relates to lighting. So I think we will need to increase those, and that is something that I will probably bring to you in August, just to get your feedback and ultimate approval to submit that as a fee, because you have to get all those fees approved at the village board level at some point for the budget. So looking at August for that too.
Rex, if you're having David do that, could you maybe have him ask about non-resident fees, what other communities are charging, just to give us an idea on that as well? He's doing the research, you could just add that one in.
Okay.
I have an item that I'd like to place on. The Ashwaubenon Walking Group would like to bring up again the fact that we would love, love, love a porta potty at Sherwood Forest. This is a conversation that comes up every single time we walk. There are grown adults who are choosing not to walk with us in the summer because when it's hot, you should be drinking water. They are worried. There is nowhere to go. Hidden Valley, you've got a gas station kind of cattywampus across the street. Most of them either have something or there's someplace nearby. I've also talked to grandparents of small children who would love to come through and walk through there, but are hesitant to bring small potty trained children because where do you go and what do you do? So I would like to put on the agenda again that we please revisit the idea of getting a porta potty every year at Sherwood Forest for the walkers. Thank you.
For those newer on the board, the park board was not in favor of that idea a couple of years ago. So we will.
I fully understand that, and
That's why Nancy
Things change.
has an opposite opinion. We've got new people on the board since that, so the thoughts may have changed, so we can certainly bring that up.
And I thank you for revisiting it. Thank you kindly, and the group thanks you. And all the people that aren't walking right now, thank you as well.
Wasn't there a concern on homeless at that point, too?
That was a major concern from our public safety department, that because there are some usually one or two a year are found to be encamped in Sherwood. Or in Hidden Valley or any of other our more natural type parks that would definitely increase those numbers.
Well, I will say that the last 2 years, there have been people camping there without a porta potty. Matter of fact, last week, the teepee was up and blankets were hanging there. So even without a porta potty there, people are utilizing a secluded area. So would love to talk about it again.
Let me know
Thank you.
that, so I can let public safety know, because I usually like to let public safety know when those things are observed.
I did not know you were not.
I
Okay.
have no idea.
Okay, thank you. We'll revisit that conversation as well. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody want to see anything else?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.